Hi, my name is David Smith. I'm in Dallas, Texas, and I want to talk to you a little bit about the Republican Party, where it is right now, and a suggestion going forward for what I think would solve a lot of the problems that we hear about being discussed in the media, in the news, by commentators, pundits, etc. There's a lot of discontent right now nationally in the Republican Party with the Republican Party, and I think that a lot of the opinions are, we hear a lot of wide-ranging opinions from we need to re-embrace our conservative roots and principles. We need to move to the center. We need to become a more moderate party. The whole spectrum of comments and opinions. And I think that it's ignoring the most obvious solution to the problem, which is the people, like myself and like many of you, the individuals in the party who actually make up the Republican Party, not the representatives, but the people, have already spoken. We have already said, here's what we want, here's what we're about, and here's what we want our representatives to do for us. It's called the Republican Party platform. And specifically, I want to talk to you about the Texas Republican Party platform, because I really think that the platform that was sent from Texas to Minneapolis was far superior to the one that was sent back down from Minneapolis to the states. I think that the National Republican Party platform, quite frankly, was a mealy-mouthed amalgam of, you've got red states like Utah and Texas, you've got blue states like California, Michigan, and Massachusetts, and the party has to pretty much appease all of these and come to a consensus on what the national party platform is. But just like we have to we have to select somebody to be our nominee for the presidency, and last year that didn't turn out so well, because this person was not, over the previous 8 years in his entire career, has not been dedicated to the principles of the platform. I believe we also need to, as a party, say, hey, here are the principles of the party. We need to stick to them, and we need to not stray from them. And then we need to select representatives who will carry out what we want. We do not elect leaders, we elect representatives. We don't need leaders who are going to turn around and tell us what to do. Hey, vote for me because I'm going to tell you what to do. That's not what we're about. We elect representatives. We present to them, we give to them our list of what we want to see them do. We present to them, and then they represent in Congress the principles that we desire to see implemented as bills, and that's what Congress does. Unfortunately, we have a bunch of people who are more concerned with leadership and making a name for themselves than with serving us, who send them to represent them. So I'm also going to have a video here later about the governor's race here in Texas. My point being, if we want to see change in terms of what the Republican Party, our representatives, are doing, we have to send new people to represent us. If we want to see a change in what they're doing, we have to send a new class of people representing us. And I want to talk specifically about the governor's race here in Texas, which is heating up to be a very ugly affair, quite frankly. And I'd like to make some suggestions for how we can get rid of the ugliness in this race very quickly and make it a done deal with a new candidate that I would propose we consider. So that'll be in another video. The Republican Party platform from Texas, I want to talk about very briefly. I think, like I said, is a very solid offering, and I think that Republicans nationally need to take this up and take a look at it in place of, if you will, some of the principles that we see in the National Party platform. Michigan, quite frankly, is not the same business environment as what Texas is. This is why we see plants closing and jobs going away in Michigan, where Texas is relatively unscathed. And I think that the problem in the party is that we have too much influence from states like Michigan, California, and Massachusetts, and not enough from southern states and Texas. States like ours who have some very, very strong conservative business principles need to be adhered to by this party. Some of the principles on our platform I want to talk about briefly are the War Powers Act resolution that calls for Congress to repeal the War Powers Act of 1973. I stood up in our county convention in 2008 and said there's no way that you can have wars in Iraq or Afghanistan or anywhere else that we've had over the last 20, 30 years if you repeal the War Powers Act. because Congress is not going to act to formally declare war very often or very lightly, as we have seen over the last 50, 60 years. Congress doesn't act in that way any longer. It doesn't do that very often. But it also does not have the power to delegate to the presidency the power to do that, so that Congress doesn't have to. We need to repeal the War Powers Act, and we need to require our Congress to act or not to act, for us to go to war only when Congress says so, or for us to have our troops stay at home, if you will. This is one of the big issues of 2006 and 2008. One of the big issues why our party has performed so poorly in the last two elections is the war in Iraq. And I think that this is a fantastic resolution. And the fact that it comes from the people of the Republican Party, I think, needs to be listened to nationally. Second, the issue of abortion has dominated the political spectrum my entire life. I was born in 1973, and in January 1973 is when Roe was handed down. This was originally actually a Dallas court case before it went to the Supreme Court, and the Texas platform holds that this is an issue that never should have entered into the federal judiciary. It's calling on the Congress to regulate the issue out of the judiciary and send it back to the states, at which point the platform also deals with the issue of abortion, not just the legality of the case. But the first point is that Congress needs to regulate the judiciary, slap them on the hand, and tell them this is not an issue you should have ever gotten into, and it's not one that you're going to continue being involved with. This is not an issue for the federal level of government. We're sending it back to the states. Now, at that point, the Texas platform says, here's how we're going to deal with it, and that's going to vary from state to state across the whole 50 states. I realize that. That's the way that the system is designed to work, and I'm fine with that. That's the way Texas says it needs to be. I think that the rest of the country needs to get on board with that concept. And then lastly, one other issue is education. And this is sadly an issue where not only are our representatives not only are they not doing what we're asking them to do, but they are ignoring and going the exact opposite direction in the issue of education. President George Bush, who just left office, for example, one of the things that he will always be known for is No Child Left Behind. And this is a specific instance where his presidency diverted from what the Republican Party called for, the people of the Republican Party again, and did the exact opposite. It expanded the powers of government in an issue that, once again, is not delegated expressly to the federal government. So once again, we're calling for the elimination of the Department of Education and returning the issue of education to the states specifically and completely. And like I said, if we want these changes to be implemented, they're not going to be implemented if we keep sending the same people representing us. So as I said, the next video that I'm putting out there is discussing the issue of the Texas gubernatorial election in 2010 and a new candidate who I'd like to add to the election. And I hope that you will take a look at that, and I hope that you like the comments that I have here. Thank you very much.